our man at Canucks Army. He is our prospect guru, and put it on the resume, Dave. I already told the people, co-host of Canucks Conversation on Saturday.
Can't wait. Are we just going to be going through the EP Rinkside draft guide and just reading everything?
No, that's what would happen if I was hosting the show alone, but you're going to have some more insights into all these players.
I should have some insights, yes.
Yeah, excited about it. Okay, this is a question, because I didn't get to it with Cam, so I'll ask you. It's another listener question. This one from Nick P. We'll start it with this one before we get to the Canucks. Does Dave think there might be a Rempe factor in the draft with people looking for that sort of toughness?
The toughness, hey? I got to say, maybe, trying to think off the top, you put me on the spot right away, hey? It's kind of tough. Like when was basically with this one, I really focused on upside. Like I either focused in the 2 earlier rounds, I focused mostly on my guys that have projectable skills, and then in the later rounds, I really went upside. And so I'm not gonna lie, I didn't focus on a guy like Rempe because I just don't believe that's what they need right now. Like I know they need size, but to be honest, I'm gonna scour through and I'll have listen. But I just off the top of my head, not a Rempe style, no.
I'm hoping they go for the size. I'm telling you, owner quads in the booth. You know what he'd be saying? He'd be saying, get all the big guys, get all the right shot guys. Tell them they should learn to play defense. I think you'd have some luck. But
Hey,
Dave,
I don't disagree. My entire list in the 3rd round was right shot centers with size.
I love it. Dave, who might the Canucks target in that 3rd round with the 93rd overall pick?
So that's exactly it. So with my list, so I have one on Canucks Army that's targets for the 3rd round. I tried to be as realistic as possible. Cam actually brought up a name that I really love, and that's Spellacy. He's just got wheels for days, and I would love if he would slip. Ultimately, I do think he probably is gone. So I tried to think of some names that I realistically think would be there and that would be projectable for probably like a 3rd round or a 3rd line center kind of role. And so for me, I really focused on center. As of right now, Atu Ratu is probably the Canucks' highest center prospect. And as I mentioned last week in the show, I'm not too high on that actually happening. So if that's the case, Max Hassan is your guy. And while I love Max Hassan, probably not the best that he's your top guy. So for me, I'm really focusing on that center or right shot position. And so a name that I really like is Simon Zether of Rogel in the SHL, 6'3", right shot center. He's pretty much a two-way guy, but he has some offensive skill. Needs to work on his skating a little bit, but I think at this point of the draft, that's pretty much par for the course. You're kind of going to have to work on something. So I'm taking his all-around profile over the skating, but there's definitely a name. And he's sweet. He's Swedish. He played a lot as a 18-year-old. Played most of his games in the SHL, albeit low utilized. But he just kind of screams Canucks pick to me. Just a good, solid, profiled Swedish player. It just seems Canuck to me.
I think we have a pretty good idea that this year's top 5, for example, isn't really on par with last year's top 5 in terms of the elite level talent prospects. But when you look at how the middle of this draft class looks in the mid rounds, rounds 2, 3, 4, how does that compare to recent draft classes? Is it average? Is it above average, below average? Where do you stand on that?
Yeah, I think in general it's probably just an average draft. There are some names there's even some overaged, double entry players that still have some intrigue. So like overall I still think there is some names that you can still get some upside there if you want to take some swings in the middle of the draft, but overall I do think it's a slightly below maybe average draft class in terms of actual upside. There's definitely some names in the mid that I think Canucks can definitely get, whether it's maybe middle 6, probably bottom 6, or maybe top 4, probably 3rd pairing guys. But overall, like even in the goalies, there's not really that number 1 goalie that you're hoping to get that's going to steal the show. Just a couple B grades, and then the rest are just like hoping that you swing on some long-term potential there. But overall, I think it's maybe just below average.
Okay, Dave, those goalies, give us some names. Give me those names. Who are those late round studs? We've seen Artur Shilovs and Kukoskenvo. We've seen, Koskenvo's still got some time and some work to do, but we've seen Shilovs obviously be the first one to graduate from the Ian Clark. I drafted this guy because of this philosophy.
And I do agree. Ty Young threw that entire philosophy out the door. It just where that came from nowhere. So I'm going with Kim Saarinen, and I apologize if I butcher some of these pronunciations, but Kim Saarinen, pretty much the best goaltender in the Finnish U20 leagues, still projected to be a 4th, maybe 5th round pick. But I'm not gonna make it seem like I'm a goalie whisperer here. So but he seems to have some good, nice, just projectable things that I think Ian Clark can probably work with. And then also, I think this is kind of a cop out because he's one of the top rated goalies in the whole thing. But Emil Vini, um, he didn't have the best numbers, so it's kind of right up Ian Clark's alley. Not great numbers, but overall, just a really he's somewhat. I think he's listed 6'3", so not small, not huge, but he's really good down low and is pretty aggressive in the net. So I think that's a name. He should be around the 3rd, maybe 4th round. So if they're really looking for a goalie and Clark wants to push, those might be 2 of the names.
Focusing back on the draft class as a whole, after Celebrini, who would you take at number 2, and who else do you really like in that top 5 to 7 picks? Just because again, there's no consensus and there are so many different takes on who people like.
Yeah, that's why it's such a loaded question, right? Like, who do I like the best? It's so tough to answer because after Celebrini, right off the bat, it's Demidov. As Cam already kind of mentioned, I know that you might like some of the right shot defensemen, as do I, but I just don't see how you give up that Bedard-Demidov combination. And especially since we already know that he's already hinted he didn't re-sign with SKA, so he's ready to come over after one more season. So you can get him pretty quick, and I just don't see how you give up on that elite talent with those 2 up there. But after that, I watched Zane Parekh quite closely with all my Josh Bloom showings this year, and I'm not comparing him exactly, but from someone who watches Quinn Hughes on a night to night basis, he just gives off those vibes of just that shifty, just always going offense. And so I really like Parekh as a right shot option. I think he probably has the potential to be maybe the best defender in this class. But I also, if you want to go a little bit safer, I do like Zeev Burim as well. Just not as elite as some of the other defensemen, but overall as a package, I would say he probably has the safest floor. He's just pretty much guaranteed to be a top 4 left side defenseman. He just seems to have all this. It's basically between the ears with him. He's just so smart, and he's just got all around game. So honestly, I could go on for 10 minutes. I kind of just like pretty much everyone from 2 to 10. You're going to get a really good player. I really like Caden Lindstrom. Obviously, like in a game like tonight, the Stanley Cup's going to be awarded. You want a guy like Caden Lindstrom on your team. That's what he's built for. So basically, like I said, you can go on forever.
Dave, who you got in Game 7? You can say Oilers. You can say Oilers.
I have to say Oilers. I just think that's. I just couldn't imagine being up 3 games right now, having to fly back to Florida and just trying to mentally beat that out. I think all the momentum, although I know 2 days, there isn't much momentum going game to game, but I just don't see how you can fight the momentum. Edmonton is riding a high right now, and there's dangerous stuff when you got McDavid riding that kind of high. I just don't see, unfortunately. But as much as we don't want the Oilers to win, we are witnessing history right now, and if there is a player that you want to see just win a cup just for the sake of him winning a cup, it's Connor McDavid. So I just think, sorry, Canucks Nation, I'm going for the Oilers.
Right on, Dave.
I can't believe I'm saying it.
It's fair, and I might have a similar take later in anyone else. But Dave, thanks so much for joining us. We will see you on Saturday, and people can read all your work over at Canucks Army. Thanks for doing this, Dave.
No problem. Happy Canada Day.
Canucks Conversation is live Monday through Friday, every weekday at 2 p.m. over on the Canucks Army YouTube channel. Make sure you like, subscribe, and interact in the YouTube live chat every day with us, folks.